everyone. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Welsh Republic podcast, episode 145 today. And I am here with my guest, Li Jingjing. This is the second time she's been on my show. How are you doing today, Ling? How's everything going with you?
And I'm doing great. And greetings to everyone from Beijing.
How's everything going there at the moment? What have you been up to today?
It's been a very busy week for me as a journalist in China and for many people in China because this week we have the China's annual most important political meeting, which is called the Two Sessions. This meeting will set the a yearly goal for the country. It sets the goal for the whole government at all levels what to do in 2024. So it's a busy day for like all the deputies to the National People's Congress. They are gathering in Beijing, having a lot of meetings, discuss the challenges they're facing and their goal on what to do, lay out the plan for the government. And also reporters, we want to know what's happening. So every day there are a lot of shootings, a lot of work, very busy. But we're still very happy. We're very excited about what's going to happen next.
Sounds very excitingly. So far, since it's going on right now, what would you say has been your greatest impressions? What has really impressed you in the show, in the People's Congress?
Mm.
And what are you expecting, from the CCP and China to do this year? And what goals have they set up from what you've seen so far? What are they planning to do for this year economically, politically, socially? What's their goals for 2024 mostly?
Mm. So my biggest impression is because two sessions is basically a domestic meeting where the government and the people decide what we were gonna do, what are we gonna achieve in the whole year. So it's set the agenda for the country. It involves the plans targeting economy, education, technology, agriculture, every aspect about the people's lives. So basically, it's a domestic meeting. But I've been covering this meeting for this is the sixth year I'm covering this meeting. So I'm seeing a growing international attention, which is very shocking to me. So when I started reporting this event 6 years ago, um, there was international attentions, but not as much as now. So every year, there's a growing international attentions. There's a growing number reporters from around the world coming to China, reporting this event. So it's really surprising and shocking, but I think in a good way because now everybody from every country thinks what happens in China may have impact to the world, to them as well, and especially when the whole world is facing headwinds in economy. So China's economic plan, how China is going to do, what about their diplomacy, their international affairs, what's their goal? So they pay attention to that. I think that's a reflection about what's going on in the world right now. Uh, Whenever there's some big events, people there are always people looking for comments, reactions, or from China. So there's a growing interest about China, and there's a growing number of reporters, not just coming from Western countries. Always there are a lot of reporters from North America, from Europe, but these days there's a growing number of reporters from Latin America, from Africa, from Caribbeans, from Middle Eastern countries. So this is my biggest impression about this year's two session. Second, the goal is well, I mean, there's so many impressive things. Yesterday at the meeting, our premier announced the work report of China's government in 2024. And basically, I can sum it up. There are 10 major responsibilities, 10 major tasks of China's government in 2024. And the 10 tasks covers many aspects. How to keep creating new productive forces and continue to improve China's economy. And then second, I think this also related to people from different countries, is China's determination to keep opening its market and creating a friendlier, much better, much more comfortable environment for international investors. And but there are many other tasks which are more related to Chinese people's life, like my life. China will keep investing in education, use science and high quality educations to improve the young generations, and China will keep focusing on agriculture, rural revitalization. And I want to emphasize that because when international reporters cover China's political meeting, they tend to only focus on economy. And economy is a big thing because good economy is the basic of many things. But Two Sessions is not just about economy. It's about China to develop its every aspect related to its citizens' life. And agriculture, rural revitalization has always been the number one priority to China for the past decades. The number one central documents released every year, the first central documents, is always on how to improve the livelihood for farmers, how to boost the productivity in villages, how to keep improving agriculture, because food safety is the most essential thing for any country. So the emphasis on agriculture and so many aspects. So I think these tasks, but also in terms of international relations, I think some people from Belt and Road countries will probably be interested that China promises it will keep doubling down on investing in Belt and Road Initiative. So that basically shows the plan of the government is very people centered. That's why people in China think this is the most important meeting, because the new policies, the new laws come out from this meeting will have a direct impact on us, Chinese people, Chinese citizens in China, and it will guide us into a better direction, and it will keep improving our lives. So I think that's maybe I already get too much information. Our viewers probably got information overload, but that's my two major impressions of this year's Two Sessions.
That's very good. Out of all the people that you've experienced meeting, like where it comes from, like deputies or like international, people who travel to the National People's Congress, what would you say from all the people you've talked to around the world, like with someone who's come up to you and said, wow, I didn't know China was like this. I thought China was a dictatorship. Like, what country, like what story did you have of someone who came up to you, talked to you about that, who said, wow, I'm blown away by that, like this is incredible, this is like the Western media's full life?
So I think first I will give you my answer in two parts. First, I can explain to our viewers, wherever you're from, why you keep hearing all these absurd stories about China, why you keep hearing that China is so bad in our multiple Western news outlets. Where does this negative coverage about China coming from? So I can give you the reason you keep hearing negative stories about China. Well, it's because of the U.S. government have been pouring tons of monies into this project. So I can, you can look it up. Anyone who is, it's not just me saying. So in 2022, the U.S. House of Representatives passed the Americas Competes Act, and this act will appropriating 500 million US dollars for news coverage to malign China. Think about that. 500 million US dollars just to make a negative story, bad stories about China. So it's funny because the US always pose itself as the beacon of press freedom, but actually they are using that to manipulate media to paint China in a negative light. And this is, in their concept, is the great power competition. And the money is funding the U.S. Agency for Global Media, U.S. Agency for Global Media, also called USAGM. So many media are under its cover, under its umbrella, including Radio Free Asia, Radio Free Europe, Voice of America. These
Yeah.
media who claim they are independent media are are just keep making other
I,
countries who are on the
I,
blacklist of America as a
I,
negative country. Yeah.
I know, Lee. It really is
Uh,
frustrating right now because you have Tucker Carlson. He did an interview with Putin, and a lot of people are like, saying, "Oh, Tucker's against the elite," but at the same time, he's doing an interview with someone who was talking about the Red Revolution, like the Mao Zedong, and criticizing. And
yeah.
it's like he's anti-China, and I'm thinking he's a grifter. And it just shows you, how the right wing of the United States, pretty much, bring a lot of propaganda to China. Whether it's the Red Scare era, we're living in the Red Scare era 2.0. That's what it is.
Yeah.
McCarthyism is on its rise, and if you look at like Mark Pompeo, like Steve Bannon and Trump, how he started the war. If there was a war against Taiwan and China, like Trump would pretty much, if anything, he would put more money towards Taiwan. He would. He wouldn't care. He would go completely against his fan base because the United States government is controlled by oligarchs and bankers. And coming
Hmm.
into that, Lee, when
Hmm.
people say that the United States government is controlled by the bankers, the oligarchs, how is China's government system? Like, who controls China's government system? Is it the corporations that control China's political system, or is it the government who control business and the bankers there? How does it work in China?
It's the people that controls the government, the policies. Oligarchs, corporations never have a chance to control um, the policies. And actually, many policies forbid the oligarchs, the corporations to how to say um, to dictate policies. So the policies came out from China's government is always serve the interests of the maximum number of people. I can give you an example. For example, the 2 years ago, the extracurriculum schools were shut down, and it was a major move because many and that was a big industry that earns tons of money every year, but it got shut down. So many companies closed, and uh, so the thing, and I probably need to provide some background information because extracurriculum schools like learning English outside of school, learning math, learning all this classes outside of school, and to in hope of getting extra marks at the college entrance exam was a big trend, and a lot of people spend a lot of money taking the good teachers from schools away to these extracurriculum schools to teach. So why would they need to close it? Because they are taking away the good high quality education resources from public schools to this private owned
Yeah,
extracurriculum school. So the meaning in China, this a good thing is people are not defined by your class, not defined by the which family you are from. Everybody can have a chance to change your life through education. So that's why we pay attention to the college entrance exam. We started so hard, and there are so many people who are made great contributions in every aspect. Come from poor families in remote villages, like the first female astronaut that we have,
yeah,
who come, yeah, first a female astronaut who has a PhD degree, who is a great scientist. She comes from a rural family. The first civilian astronaut who just went to the space station last year comes from a very poor village in Yunnan province, which was just lifted out of poverty in 2020. So all these people can make a difference, can change their lives through study hard, get good education, and be astronaut, be the best in their fields. So, but these extracurriculum schools are taking away these good resources. So that means they are taking the resources for all these ordinary families away. And the rich people, the rich families can always use the money to get good resources. Even if there's no schools, extracurriculum schools, they can always find good ways to either to hire some private teachers or go overseas. They have resources. But the families, kids from these ordinary families who account for the maximum number of China's 1.4 billion population, their resources is the public schools who have the best teachers. So this cannot continue to happen because they are taking the benefits, the good resources away from these ordinary people. So that was shut down for a good reason. It serves the interests for the most people, not doesn't serve the few rich families' interests. So that's that's what I mean when I said the people dictates the policies, because the policies always serve the maximum numbers of ordinary people. So, like I mentioned earlier, the reason people keep hearing all this absurd, super absurd stories about China, negative stories about China that paint China as a villain, is first is because of the U.S. actually did pour so much money in England, and second is um, oh, I can just add an example. Sorry, because the U.S. Pour the money into making negative news about China, and this is being confirmed by other countries' media. For example, they spend so much time talking bad about the Belt and Road Initiative. So
I
2 years
know, it's
ago,
ridiculous.
yeah, the
Yeah.
Zimbabwe media, the Herald, published an article because they did investigation. The U.S. government, through their U.S. embassies in these countries, are sponsoring the so-called independent journalists to write negative information about China. They pay $1,000 for each negative
Wow.
stories they wrote about negative stories about China to portray Chinese businesses bad, basically. So this has been confirmed by these BRI countries. So that's why you keep hearing the ridiculous stories about a BRI. So I mean, if you spend so much money just to talk bad about other countries, how about spending that money developing
I
your
know,
countries?
it's ridiculous,
Develop,
eh?
yeah, build some infrastructure. That will be much more. People will like you more. But this is why. And second, you mentioned China. Most people outside of China have a misconception about China's political system. You know, there's so much misinformation, misconceptions about China. China is not one party system, and I probably need to explain a little bit what's the People's Congress.
Oh
I
no,
mean,
go
two
for it.
sessions.
Go for it. Yeah, yeah. I was just wondering, like, so here's what I wanted to ask you, Lee. So,
Mm,
first off, before we go to the Congress thing, put that here,
mm,
is I want to ask you, if you
mhm.
were in China, right, and you like how in China, how do you, sorry, if you were in like China, does China have freedom of speech in its constitution? Are you allowed to criticize the government? And if you do, will you get arrested? And how like does the second succession, like sorry, how does the protesting work in China, knowing that it does have protests? How do the protests work? How do they do it differently to the United States? How are you allowed to criticize the government in China? Like how, can you how and how would you say like China has more freedom of speech than the United States does in a way? And how does like the National People's Congress work? How does it function properly? How does it do its sessions? And how many deputies and how many backgrounds from people come over to the National People's Congress? Yeah, those are the
Mm.
questions I have for you.
Wow, a lot of questions. But okay, I will try to explain. This is the common misconceptions. I've heard so many people who have never been to China, yet they were already afraid of going to China. They worried that they will be arrested once they are in China.
I
I was
know.
What? I guarantee you, you will not be arrested when you're in China. Even you said horrible things about China, you won't be arrested unless you are doing some bad stuff, like committing some crimes, or was a spy. You are actually violating the law. If you violate the law, you will be arrested. Otherwise, you will be fine. So, and you can also ask all so many people coming to China every year. You can ask any people who have traveled or lived in China what's their impression. And again, the biggest comment I get in recent years is from the people who have traveled to China. They're always surprised at how safe China is. People from North America, from Europe, from Africa, from Latin America, they all say, "Oh my God, I'm so surprised. China is so safe." As a woman, the women said it the most. As a woman, they never felt so safe in China. They can walk alone in the middle of the night anytime they want. They don't need to worry about a thing. And I told my friends, if I went to say an event, public event in Beijing, I left my phone and laptop on the table. 1 hour, I come back, my phone and my laptop will still be there. So that's
Wow,
how safe it
that's
is.
really nice.
Yeah, if I go to party with my friends, I can come back home all by myself at 1 a.m., 2 a.m. I don't need to worry about a thing. I don't need a man to send me home. I just call a taxi and I will be safely come back home. So, I mean, isn't that the basic, the most important human rights? The safety? This is the
I know.
freedom we find. We have the freedom to walk freely, not worrying about any potential crimes. I mean, that's the biggest freedom, and that you can ask anyone, anyone who traveled to China. I think many vloggers from different countries also did the same. Someone ordered some delivery food, and they left it on their motorcycle, and a few hours come back, the food will still be there. Just like there's, the safety is insane, but I didn't notice that before I traveled to other countries in recent years. I feel like the safety in other countries deteriorated in recent years. So, for example, when I go to some European countries,
Yeah.
when I was there in Europe 10 years ago, they were not. I don't need to worry that much, but still, like I need to worry, especially in some countries, but not that much. But in recent years, it's become insane. So this is the freedom we have, and I can also. There are a lot of people who complain about certain things in China where they don't like this or they don't like that, and they're fine. They are my friends, they're my colleagues, they're just random people I encountered on the streets. They are doing fine. So all this misconception is the what exactly what the U.S. government's money plan to do. Use the media to generate the fear so people don't even dare to go to China to see for themselves. This is the fear that the media did. So that's why. Okay, so in terms of the political system, as I mentioned in the beginning, this week is China's annual most important political meeting, the two sessions, and I can explain a little bit of what is two sessions. So two sessions refers to two major meetings. The first one is National People's Congress. That's National People's Congress, in short, NPC. So that's China's top legislature and the highest organ of state power. The second session is called Chinese People's Political Consultative Conference, in short, CPPCC. So that's China's top political advisory body. So these two major meetings combined together are referred to as two sessions. So, the National People's Congress is basically the institutional guarantee for the effective running of the country. And the system of People's Congress is through this People's Congress, people can exercise their power to legislate, to appoint and remove officials, to make decisions on matters related to national development, and they can supervise. So I think if you want to understand how Chinese people involved in the decision making and policy making process, I can try to understand these two sessions and China's People's Congress. So basically, in China, people exercise their state power through people's congresses, and people's congresses exercise state power collectively on behalf of the people. And now we have the National People's Congress, but actually, people's congresses are at all levels. The county, village, city, provincial, they're all people's congresses. So, and now in March, we have the National People's Congress, but before that, the local people's congresses have already been held from bottoms to up. They already been held in village, in city, in provinces. So, the deputies are elected by the people, and the deputies will go to the People's Congress to exercise the power. And most of the deputies come from grassroots. They live among the people, they have close connections with people, and so they can solicit opinions, suggestions from the people. And I can give you a number. So I think by 2020, by the end of 2020, 2.6 million people in China have worked as deputies to people's congresses at all levels. And 94% of them are at county and township levels. So you know the priority. I mean, the most of the deputies to people's congresses are from the grassroots. 94% of them at county and village levels. So they know the real problems. They know what's going on, the problem, the concerns of the farmers, of small cities, of the on their daily life. So I mean, they will. That's how China can have such dramatic transformations in the past few decades, because of they keep hearing the opinions from the people. So basically, that's how it works. And also, the CPPCC is the advisory body. And I said earlier that China is not a one-party system. It's not a two-party system that always fight for power, who governs in turn. So China is neither. So China basically CPC, the Chinese Communist Party of China, CPC is the party that exercises the state power. But besides CPC, we also have 8 other parties. The 8 other parties also discuss with CPC on national matters. The 8 parties, you can look it up if you want, but include the Revolutionary Committee of China's Kuomintang, China Democratic League, China's National Democratic Construction Association, Zhigong Party, Jiusan Society. So there are 8 other parties that works with the CPC. So through the Political Consultative Conference, they discuss, and they also have deputies to the People's Congress. So when China deliver the work report, deliberate and review the work reports, these parties also have deputies to have a say. And also the political. Sorry, my cat just jumped on the table, so there's some noise. I just look at check
okay.
out.
That's all good. That's funny.
And the
I think your cat.
yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm good. So there are a lot of information. So I mean, if one really wants to understand China's political system, I can recommend some books and keep following our report. But there's mechanism. The mechanism here to ensure that all people in China plays a part in overseeing the work of the government. And for example, I can give you another detail, because, for example, the National People's Congress, there are almost 3,000 deputies this year. Almost 3,000 deputies. They come from different backgrounds. They come from all aspects, all fields and industries. And they also China have 56 ethnic groups. Each ethnic groups at least has one deputy to the national level. So I mean, this is to make sure everybody can be represented, and also it prevents some parties from standing for the interest of a only small group of people. This to maximally represent or fulfill the interest of the maximum number of people. So I hope I explained it clearly. I know it's a little bit
You're doing
complex
good. You're
to
doing good.
understand.
It's all good. Don't worry. Keep going. It's all good.
Okay, so basically that. Any other questions you have?
So going about how that works,
Mm,
I just wanted to explain. So where in the Chinese constitution does
mm.
it say that a person can say like person has the right for freedom of speech? I mean, sorry, I
Yeah,
was
of
meant to
course.
say I was meant to say Li Jing, sorry about that. I was meant to say is I looked at the Chinese constitution and it says I think I can't remember where it is in the Chinese constitution, but it says China has freedom of speech. China has the right to freedom of
Yes.
assembly. But I also just wanted to ask, how do the protests work in China? Because I know that like there are protests in China. How do they work, and like what law do people have to follow? And like how would you say it's better than the West's protests?
Mm, so I haven't looked it up yet. I cannot give you the more detailed answers now. If you give me more time, I can prepare. But I think it's people have have the right to express their criticism, and as you can give you some. For example, there are many. There okay. So in different cities, there are many liaison offices, so I can there are different ways to express their opinions. First, the liaison offices, people can contact the deputies that live among them. So if you go to cities, like last month before the Chinese New Year, I also went to Urumqi in Xinjiang. I went to some liaison offices there. So when people have issues, have problems, they can just go to the office and just tell the staff they need to solve. And for some communities, there are deputies live among them who are just a citizen, live in their neighborhood. They also call them to solve that. There are also offices for marriage consultants. If they have a family disputes, domestic violence, there are also government offices that can solve that. So it's very interesting. And then there are also online platforms. There are multiple online platforms that people can uh, send their complaints, the problems they're facing, and they also there's a phone number. Every city has this phone number. For example, I forgot my Beijing exact number. It's 12345. 12345 exactly. You can call the city line. So it's called a city mayor's um, hotline, if I
Yeah.
translate that correctly. City mayor's hotline. So there are staff picking up the call 24/7, and even I remember 2 years ago I called that phone number as well to uh, bring the issue about something about my, how to call it, because it's still under the COVID restrictions. I have some issues with my software and with my information. So I also make that call and tell them what the issues are. And one day later, they solve it. And that was the peak season because basically because so many people use it and the system crashed. Then when system crashed, then we probably have some issues to cannot entering, for example, some gate. And I called them, they can help me to solve it out. So I mean, there are so many ways to solve that issues. But whereas I see, for example, in the United States, there are so many major demonstrations, protests, but I rarely see their problems being solved.
No. It's
So
it's it's Sarah's in the chat, by the way, the DG Geopolitics. Sarah, she's in the chat, and she'll agree with you strongly. Protesting the United States doesn't do anything she knows what it's like. I mean,
Here,
shout out to her.
yeah,
Yeah,
here when
shout out
people
to her, by the way.
complain or say something, the problems really get solved. So that's why when sometimes when people say, "Oh, we can say this, we can do that," can you? And first, we can do that too, and we can do it in a more effective way because we actually got our problems solved. Whereas you shout every day on the streets, you say any horrible things about your president, yet you don't get anything solved.
No,
The-
you don't.
the- so right, I think that's the major differences. But I'm not trying to say which system is better. Uh, it's just I think every country has the right to govern their country in their own way because every country's cultural, historical background is very different. And China's system, China's way of dealing with things is working for us. That's why me as a Chinese person born and raised in China, I saw my livelihood, my family's livelihood got changed so much in the past, even just past 1 decade. So it's dramatically changed that because of the government actually seeing the problems in every part of the country and keep solving it and keep they are willing to do experiment as well. They do it, and if it works we continue to do it. If it failed, we correct it immediately. So I mean that's how the country keeps uh, evolving, keeps progressing. So even some people probably only see the Chinese Communist Party, who is governing the country, that never changed. Yeah, but the country got changed so much, and everything. Well, I just cannot put into words how dramatic the changes are for me as a Chinese person living in China. And I just told you how safe China is today. The safety is just it's too safe, as especially coming from like this company is coming from a woman who can do whatever I want. I don't need to worry about men attacking me on the street or got my bags stolen, got robbed. I don't need to worry about that in Beijing, in Shanghai. But I remember even 10 years ago, it wasn't like that yet. So even just 10 years, and 10 years ago, there was no e-payment. There was no shared bags, the bikes, shared bikes, and there were not so many, like everything we are using daily now didn't even exist just 10 years ago. So I mean, that's how dramatic the change is. 10 years, now we have a different China, a much more advanced China. So yeah,
So Lee,
that's my answer. Mm,
speaking of that, I saw
mm,
this. Everyone right now has seen your like a lot of people have seen that fantastic video where you talk about Shin. I can't pronounce. Sorry if I can't pronounce it right. Like Shinzan, and you
Xinjiang.
were basically like. So in your way, like the, basically it says, I want to ask you is so why is it exactly that the United States wants Shenzhen to split from China and the CIA have
Mm,
obviously planned it a long time ago? Why do they like and why do they want to use it to destabilize Eurasia? And like
mm,
what's the CIA plan? And when I saw that video, it also
mm-hmm,
comes down, when you look at like how for a long time how a lot of people accuse the United States media, the Zionist media of the United States, accuse China of doing genocide against the Tibetans. They accuse China of treating other races in China as bad things, and it's absolutely outrageous, especially when you look at the amount of CIA propaganda funding, like where it comes from the Tibet Revolution, how they're trying to separate from China, how they try to do it, and
mm-hmm,
how you've got the CIA funding the Uyghurs, the Uyghur Muslim separatist movement, and
mm,
how they're doing, especially the Hong Kong protests that happened. When you
mm,
look at that, like, so why is it that the United States wants to separate China from, Shenzhen? And
mm.
yeah, why is it like, and why, how, why is it so important for the United States to do that?
Yeah. So basically, people keep hearing about what happened to Xinjiang, to Tibet, and Hong Kong. Basically, it's and Taiwan. Basically, is U.S. plan to divide China because China's sheer size is threatening, and so. But they failed in Hong Kong. They failed in Tibet. So Xinjiang is their major focus, right? because I also explained it in my video, so people can check it out on my Twitter page. But there's a geopolitical and economic interest for the United States to separate Xinjiang from China. So please check it on the map where Xinjiang locates. If you look at the map, Xinjiang is in the northwest of China. So this province connects China with Central Asia. Central Asia is a place with countries like Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan. So it connects with Central Asia. And Xinjiang itself is a vast province in China. This province alone shares borders with 8 countries. These 8 countries are Russia, Mongolia, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, Kyrgyzstan, Afghanistan, Pakistan, and India. So when you hear the names of these countries, well, doesn't something smell more suspicious? So this region itself shares borders with these countries. And I also included that clip from the former retired U.S. Colonel, what's his name, Lawrence B. Wilkerson. He used to serve for the U.S. Secretary of State Colin Powell. He said it loud and clear in a speech when he was teaching his fellow diplomats in the United States. He said, "You know why we went to Afghanistan? Why the U.S. troops go to Afghanistan? It had nothing to do with Kabul. It has nothing to do with state building. It had nothing to do with fighting Taliban. It's basically says there are several purpose for them to be in Afghanistan, because Afghanistan, which also shares border with Xinjiang, the location of Afghanistan also sits in the middle of China's Belt and Road Initiative, and they know there are a lot of Uyghurs in Xinjiang, and there are always some extremists and separatists everywhere in every country, but they want to use the separatists in the group to use them to form an unrest internally to fight with the Chinese government. So they intentionally sponsored these separatists, Uyghur extremists and Uyghur separatists, and to stoke separatism and form unrest within China. That's their goal, and he said it clearly. And also, when the U.S. troops being there, they will be able to use military forces to destroy China's Belt and Road Initiative. They can also be there, use military forces to fight Pakistan, and also over Syria. So the reason they target Xinjiang is Xinjiang's location is too important, geopolitical important. If they destroy Xinjiang, it will destroy Belt and Road. Why destroy Belt and Road? Because Belt and Road is connecting Asia, East Asia, Central Asia, West Asia to Europe. It's connecting basically the entire Eurasia. The Eurasia, do you know how big Eurasia is?
Very
It's
big. Very
very
big.
big. And if we look at the historical material, how much money, how many U.S. military bases are there in Central Asia, in West Asia, the Middle East, and how much money they poured into sponsoring terrorism in this region, into wars in this region. So this is the reason they did that. They want these instabilities in Eurasia. Divide and conquer strategy.
Yeah.
Just divide Eurasia. You would never be able to unite, and then the US will be able to keep their superior position, exceptional position, basically hegemony over the world.
Yeah.
But now this Belt and Road Initiative is bringing economic development to this region, just think, through this Belt and Road Initiative, Afghanistan, Pakistan, Syria, all the countries in the Middle East, who were denied the right to develop because of the invasion, because of the wars, now have a have a have a how to say finally have a chance to bring infrastructure, to bring economic development in their country. And when people are much better off, when people getting rich, why will they join extremism and terrorism? They
Yeah.
will be able to have a family, have a land. There's no reason to join terrorism. So this region will be peaceful. And that's what's threatening the US empire. And this Xinjiang narrative became popular in recent years,
Yeah.
but they planned it decades ago. This speech I included in my video, I think came out 10 years ago. And even before that, in the early 2000s, I think this US strategist, Graham E. Fuller, wrote a report called The Xinjiang Problem. And he
Yeah.
analyzed the situation. He wrote that report in early 2000, and probably even before that. So how to play the Uyghur card in the report. He basically said how to play the Uyghur card, what the U.S. should do to sponsor the terrorists and form unrest in within. Everybody can look it up and read it. So they planned it long ago. Hence, you keep hearing the narrative in recent years, and all this so-called eyewitnesses, these people, if you trace them, all their sponsors are NED, the National Endowment for Democracy, and this
Mm.
so-called independent countries. Their headquarters in Washington D.C. All of them have connections to CIA, NED, and Washington D.C. Isn't that suspicious?
I know, it's ridiculous, eh? You know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, so anybody, if you want to, you are interested in this topic, you can go to my Twitter to watch this video because I included the report and the quotes of the U.S. soldier himself, and I will continue to show more stories from Xinjiang because those people who claim they care about Xinjiang know nothing about Xinjiang. They
No,
don't know
they
the
don't.
culture. They only know the word Uyghur, but they don't know what their culture is like. They don't know what their custom is like, what their people are like. So ignorant, but completely brainwashed by this U.S. propaganda.
So Li Jingjing, before we finish up, because you said you just want to do 15 minutes,
Yeah.
what is the last thing you would like to say, and where can people find you?
Mm. So people can find me on Twitter, search my name Li Jingjing, and you can find me on YouTube, TikTok, Reddit. I'm everywhere. So why am I everywhere on the internet? Because I want to show the real information coming from China as a journalist, as a Chinese living in China. So even though I explained a lot about China's political system, I'm not trying to convince anyone which system is much better. I'm just telling you, you had a lot of people have misconceptions about China's political system, about China in general, because of
Yeah.
the U.S. propaganda. It's just misconception. The reality is different. I'm trying to show the reality. So, and I think if you want to find the real stories, real information about China, if you're curious about China, have any questions about China, I'm happy to answer your question. Leave me a message. I'm happy to answer your questions about China. And most importantly, now it's easier than ever to visit China nowadays because of the visa policies. Um, uh, it's much easier to come here and see for yourself. And when you are here, when you see for yourself, when you talk to Chinese people, you will know all this misinformation, all these lies that media, the Western media have been telling you are just lies. And we are happy people. Chinese people are happy people. We do smile. We are not oppressed, and we are doing good. And come to visit us. That's it.
So it's very good. That's fantastic. So I just want to say thank you for coming on, Li Jingjing. We should definitely do another show in the future. How does it sound to you?
Mm-hmm.
A third show, which will be great. First show will be fantastic.
Of course.
And I just want to say to everybody, thank you for coming on, Lee. It was a pleasure having you again. And I just want to say to everybody in the chat, thank you for joining the Welsh Republic podcast, episode 145. Please remember to go check out Li Jingjing's work. She's absolutely fantastic. Everything you need to know about China is there. She's got all the information, all the questions you need. She's a very talented journalist. Go follow her on Twitter. Go follow her on YouTube. Give her all the like and subscribe she needs, all the credit she does. And yeah, go give her respect. And please remember, everybody, to like and subscribe this video. Thank you for joining the Welsh Republic podcast, episode 145. Have a nice day, everybody. God bless you all. Stay safe